These are the four golfers that John Daly has publicly called out over the years, and when you hear what he said about Tiger Woods, you'll understand why their relationship never recovered. This is the story of how golf's most controversial player burned bridges with some of the sport's biggest names. John Daly has never been one to hold his tongue. The man they call Long John and Wild Thing built his career on brutal honesty, sometimes to his own detriment. While other golfers carefully manage their image and choose their words like they're lining up a putt at Augusta, Daly fires from the hip like he's teeing off with his driver, and over the years he's made it crystal clear that there are certain players he simply cannot stand. Now at 58 years old, still parking his RV at tournaments and selling merchandise, while chain-smoking Marlboros, Daly continues to be one of the most polarizing figures in golf. He's won 5 PGA Tour events, including 2 major championships that shocked the golf world. But it's his feuds and frank assessments of fellow players that have kept him in the headlines long after his competitive prime. Let's start with the big one, the conflict that shocked golf fans when Daly first revealed it in his 2006 autobiography, Tiger Woods. "Tiger Woods is not my friend. Never has been. Never will be." Those words sent shockwaves through the golf community. Here was Daly, a 2-time major champion, essentially declaring that the greatest golfer of his generation wanted nothing to do with him. But it cuts deeper than just a lack of friendship. According to Daly, Woods completely ignored him during some of his darkest moments. When Daly was struggling with his well-documented battles with alcohol and gambling, losing an estimated $50 to $60 million by his own admission, he felt that Woods turned his back on him, not just as a fellow competitor, but as a human being. Daly claimed that Woods wouldn't even acknowledge him at tournaments. Picture this, 2 major champions, both known for their prodigious length off the tee, passing each other on the practice range, and one acts like the other doesn't exist. That's what Daly says happened repeatedly. But why would Woods treat him this way? According to Daly, it all comes down to image. He criticized Woods for being too perfect, too managed by handlers, too concerned with his corporate sponsors to associate with someone like John Daly. In Daly's view, Woods represented everything wrong with modern golf, a robotic, carefully crafted persona designed to sell products rather than show authentic personality. The irony here hits hard. Woods, who would later have his squeaky clean image shattered in spectacular fashion, was allegedly shunning Daly for being too much of a loose cannon. Daly saw this as pure hypocrisy, and he wasn't afraid to say so. Now, to be fair, their relationship has thawed somewhat in recent years. They both played in the 2022 PNC Championship with their sons, and Daly has softened his stance. But he maintains they were never close, and the damage from those early years when he needed support and received none has never fully healed. Moving on to player number 2, Phil Mickelson. If Daly's issue with Tiger was about feeling ignored and judged, his problem with Mickelson hits even closer to home. Because with Phil, it's about gambling and authenticity. 2 subjects Daly knows all too well. Daly has been remarkably candid about his own gambling problems. Losing $50 to $60 million isn't something most people would advertise, but Daly owns it. What irritates him about Mickelson is what he sees as Phil's attempt to maintain a squeaky clean image, while allegedly having his own serious gambling issues. Daly has suggested that Mickelson's good guy image is completely manufactured. Here's a guy who smiles for the cameras, signs autographs, plays the part of the family man, but according to Daly, it's all an act. And when Mickelson got involved with the Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour, Daly saw it as confirmation of what he'd always believed, that Phil was all about the money, just like everyone else, but wouldn't admit it. The gambling angle particularly stings. Daly, who has been refreshingly honest about his losses, resents that Mickelson's gambling stories only came out through investigations and reports, not through Phil's own admission. It's the cover-up that bothers Daly more than the crime, so to speak. Think about it from Daly's perspective. He's been crucified in the media for his gambling problems, while Mickelson maintained his endorsement deals and golden boy status, despite allegedly having similar issues. That kind of double standard would frustrate anyone, but for someone as straightforward as Daly, it's particularly galling. Now we come to the generational divide, and nobody represents that more than Rory McIlroy. Daly's issues with McIlroy aren't as personal as his conflicts with Tiger or Phil. Instead, they represent something bigger. Daly's frustration with what golf has become. In his view, players like McIlroy are everything wrong with the modern game. They're all robots now, Daly said in a 2023 interview, and while he didn't single out McIlroy specifically, the Northern Irishman certainly fits the profile Daly was describing. What does Daly mean by robots? He's talking about the fitness obsession, the perfect swings, the corporate speak, the managed social media presence. McIlroy hits the gym religiously, watches what he eats, and rarely says anything controversial. To Daly, who famously said, "I play golf, I don't work out," this represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what made golf great. Daly believes modern players like McIlroy lack personality. They're too controlled by sponsors, too worried about their brand to ever show who they really are. When was the last time you saw McIlroy do something unexpected? When did he last make headlines for anything other than his golf? The criticism goes deeper than just personality. Daly sees the younger generation's approach to fitness and preparation as missing the point. Golf in his view is about feel and creativity, not about having six-pack abs and a perfect biomechanical swing. He won 2 majors while smoking, drinking, and eating whatever he wanted. Players like McIlroy represent the opposite approach, and Daly clearly thinks something essential has been lost. It's the difference between golf as art and golf as science. Daly is an artist, unpredictable, emotional, capable of brilliance and disaster in equal measure. McIlroy is a technician, consistent, professional, optimized for success, and Daly can't stand it. Which brings us to the 4th player, and perhaps the one who most perfectly embodies everything Daly hates about modern golf. Bryson DeChambeau. If McIlroy represents the corporate robotization of golf, DeChambeau takes it to an almost comical extreme. The man they call the mad scientist approaches golf like he's solving quantum physics equations, and Daly has been merciless in his mockery. DeChambeau's scientific approach to golf medley, his single-length irons, his physics calculations, his protein shakes and body transformation, it's all antithetical to how Daly believes golf should be played. Daly has called it overthinking and worse. But it's not just the science that bothers Daly. It's the pace of play. DeChambeau has become notorious for his slow, methodical approach to every shot. He'll factor in air density, calculate trajectories, consider every variable known to man before hitting a simple wedge shot. For Daly, who plays by feel and instinct, this is torture to watch. Daly has made fun of DeChambeau's entire persona, the physics-based golf philosophy, the extreme bulk-up phase, the way he talks about the game like he's discovered some secret formula that nobody else understands. To Daly, it's all nonsense. Golf is about standing over the ball and hitting it, not about turning yourself into a human computer. The irony is that both Daly and DeChambeau are known for their distance off the tee, but where Daly's power came naturally, his famous quote being that he just grips it and rips it. DeChambeau has manufactured his distance through science and training. It's organic versus synthetic, instinct versus calculation, and Daly clearly knows which side he's on. What makes this particularly interesting is that DeChambeau, like Daly, has had his issues with the golf establishment. He's been criticized, mocked, and controversial. You might think that would create some common ground, but instead it seems to have pushed them further apart. Daly sees DeChambeau as trying too hard to be different, while Daly's differences were always authentic. So what does all this tell us about John Daly and his place in golf? I don't have friends out here. This is a business. That quote from Daly reveals everything. It suggests that these conflicts aren't really about personal animosity. They're about something bigger. Daly's frustration with what professional golf has become and his role as an outsider in that world. Think about Daly's career for a moment. He burst onto the scene in 1991, winning the PGA Championship as the 9th alternate. He wasn't supposed to be there, wasn't supposed to win, and certainly wasn't supposed to become a star, but he did all three, and he did it his way. Momming drives, chain smoking, and connecting with fans in a way that felt genuine and unfiltered. That 1995 Open Championship at St. Andrews confirmed he was no fluke. Here was a player with enormous talent, who simply refused to conform to golf's stuffy traditions, and for a while that worked. The golf world had room for a colorful character, someone who could balance out all the country club propriety with some good old-fashioned rebelliousness. But somewhere along the way, golf changed, and Daly didn't, or couldn't, or wouldn't. The players he can't stand are Woods, Mickelson, McIlroy, DeChambeau. They all represent different aspects of modern professional golf. Woods brought unprecedented athleticism and corporate appeal. Mickelson mastered the art of maintaining a public persona. McIlroy exemplifies the young, fit, media-trained modern athlete. DeChambeau pushes the boundaries of sports science and analytics. And where does that leave John Daly? Still parking his RV at tournaments, still selling merchandise directly to fans, still smoking and drinking and speaking his mind. He's become a relic of a different era, and he knows it. But here's the thing, Mickel's fans still love him. When Daly shows up at a tournament, he draws crowds, not because he might win bad. Those days are largely behind him, but because he represents something that's been lost: authenticity, personality, the sense that professional golfers are real people with real flaws, not carefully managed brands. Daly's conflicts with these 4 players aren't really about personal hatred. They're about his frustration with a sport that he feels has left him and fans like him behind. When he criticizes Woods for being too managed, Mickelson for being fake, McIlroy for being robotic, and DeChambeau for overthinking, he's really criticizing what golf has become. The sport has gotten richer, more athletic, more professional, and more global. By any objective measure, it's thriving. But Daly would argue, and many fans would agree, that it's also gotten more boring. Where are the characters? Where are the players who will speak their mind? show emotion, and connect with regular people. Daly's recent comments show he hasn't mellowed with age. If anything, being on the PGA Tour champions has given him more freedom to speak his mind. He's got nothing left to lose. No endorsement deals to protect, no image to maintain. Just his RV, his merchandise, and his opinions. The health issues he's faced recently add another layer to this story. Here's a man who lived life on his own terms. Consequences be damned. While his contemporaries were extending their careers through fitness and clean living, Daly was doing things his way. And now, in his late 50s, he's paying the price physically, while still refusing to apologize for his choices. What's fascinating is how these conflicts have evolved over time. The Tiger relationship has softened somewhat, probably because both men have been humbled by their own scandals and struggles. The Mickelson criticism has been somewhat vindicated by Phil's recent controversies. The younger players like McIlroy and DeChambeau continue to represent everything Daly opposes, but there's almost a resignation in his criticism now. Less anger, more sadness at what's been lost. Daly often talks about playing golf, not working out. It's become his catchphrase, a shorthand for his entire philosophy. But it's more than just a clever quote. It represents a fundamental belief about what golf should be. A game, not a science experiment. A test of skill and nerve, not a showcase for physical fitness and technological optimization. The players Daly can't stand have all found ways to succeed in modern golf. They've adapted to the demands of sponsors, media, and an increasingly competitive global game. Daly never adapted, and that's both his curse and his appeal. When fans watch Daly now, still competing on the Champions Tour, still smoking between shots, still telling anyone who'll listen exactly what he thinks, they're not just watching a golfer, they're watching the last of a breed. A reminder of when golf was rougher around the edges, but perhaps more honest. These four players, Woods, Mickelson, McIlroy, and DeChambeau, aren't villains in this story. They're simply products of their time, playing the game the way it needs to be played now to succeed at the highest level. Daly's inability or unwillingness to do the same has made him both a cautionary tale and a folk hero. His autobiography titled My Life in and Out of the Rough couldn't be more appropriate. Daly has spent most of his career in the rough, both literally and figuratively. But while other players would try to pitch out safely, get back to the fairway, minimize the damage, Daly always went for the green. Sometimes it worked spectacularly, sometimes it led to disaster, but it was always entertaining. That's what his criticism of these four players really comes down to. They play it safe, manage risk, think about the long term. Daly never did any of that, and he can't respect those who do. In his mind, they're not really playing golf. They're managing careers, building brands, maximizing earnings. The tragedy is that golf probably needs both approaches. It needs the Dalys to provide color and connect with everyday fans. But it also needs the Woods and McIlroys to attract sponsors and grow the game globally. The conflict comes when one side can't see the value in the other. As Daly continues his career on the Champions Tour, these feuds and criticisms have become part of his brand. Fans don't come to see him win tournaments. They come to see him be John Daly. Part of that is hitting massive drives and making the occasional spectacular shot. But just as much of it is his willingness to say what others won't. When he says Tiger wasn't a friend, that Phil is fake, that Rory is a robot, that Bryson is overthinking everything, he's speaking for a segment of golf fans who feel the same way but don't have a platform. He's the voice of the old school, the spokesperson for everyone who misses the days when golfers were more human and less corporate. These four players he can't stand have all achieved more success in pure golf terms than Daly has. They've won more tournaments, made more money, maintained longer careers at the top level. But Daly would argue, and he has argued, that they've sacrificed something essential in the process. They've gained the world but lost their souls. To put it in terms Daly might appreciate. The question is, who's right? Is golf better now with its fitness trailers and sports psychologists and biomechanical analysis? Or was it better when players like Daly could show up overweight and hungover and still compete through sheer talent and determination? The answer probably depends on who you ask. Younger fans who've grown up with Tiger and Rory might not understand what all the fuss is about. Of course, professional athletes should be in peak physical condition. Of course, they should manage their image and think about their brand. That's what professionals do in any sport. But older fans, the ones who remember when golf was different, they get it. They understand why Daly is frustrated. They remember when golfers were characters first and athletes second. When the sport felt more accessible, because the players seemed more like regular guys who happened to be really good at golf. Daly represents that era, and his conflicts with these four players are really conflicts between two different visions of what golf should be. Neither vision is necessarily wrong, but they're incompatible. And Daly, being Daly, isn't going to pretend otherwise. As we look at these four feuds, these four players that John Daly publicly can't stand, we're really looking at the story of how golf changed and left one of its most colorful characters behind. It's a story about authenticity versus image management, natural talent versus scientific optimization, personality versus professionalism. John Daly may have burned bridges with some of golf's biggest stars, but he's never burned the bridge to his fans. They love him precisely because he's willing to call out the Tigers and Phils and Rorys and Brysons of the world. In a sport that increasingly feels like a corporate boardroom, Daly is the guy in the parking lot keeping it real. And that's why, despite all the controversies and conflicts, despite the feuds and the harsh words, John Daly remains relevant, not as a competitive force, but as a reminder of what golf used to be and what some fans wish it still was. These four players he can't stand have won the present and future of golf. But Daly, in his own stubborn, self-destructive way, has become the keeper of its past. The conflicts aren't going away. As long as Daly has a microphone and an opinion, he'll keep telling anyone who listens exactly what he thinks about the modern game and the players who epitomize it. And somewhere out there, parked in his RV, smoking a cigarette and signing autographs for fans who remember when golf was different, John Daly will keep being John Daly. Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. And that's exactly how he wants it.